Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. I got a question for everybody here watching this video and, everybody who subscribes to the channel. If you're an AEW fan or not, or if you're just a wrestling fan, are you excited for AEW All In Texas? Because it's going up against an NXT show. A lot of people are not going to watch it because it's like, listen, NXT, AEW, we'll see how it gets weighted out. We don't even know the matches for the NXT show. We're speculating that Blake Monroe may have a title match there, but really we don't know the direction of the NXT title. This isn't really an NXT versus AEW video, but guys, we're at the time of this recording and at the time that this video has been posted, if you're watching this at another point, we're 3 weeks out, right around 21 days before this show goes in front of what's supposed to be 25, 30, hopefully 30,000 people. I think 30,000 is being ambitious. They've announced 3 matches for this show. 3 matches that, should get you really excited. But are you really excited about this card given, what this event All In provided us last year with the 3 major matches that had a ton of story going into them? And, there was 4 major matches that they made. One of them was a dud in Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. A lot of different things went wrong there. Main event, Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland. We can debate it until we're blue in the face. Hangman probably should have been in that spot, but it still was a big moment. And it was really well built too between Swerve Strickland and Bryan Danielson, with Bryan Danielson getting the world championship. Mariah May, Toni Storm was a fabulous and long-term, well-booked women's storyline that culminated with Mariah May getting the women's championship. It's ironic that here we are going into All In Texas, and now she is going to potentially be winning another championship in another company. That's how wrestling works. But, the fact that that's even a sentence in 2025 professional wrestling, holy shit, that's not a good look for AEW. And then the third storyline's MJF and Will Ospreay. And you're looking around, that was well built. I mean, granted, I wasn't the biggest, I like the 59 minute, near 60 minute, time limit that MJF stole the championship in the last second to really set up the feud. But I like the way they built it up with America versus England. It was well done. MJF's as good of a storyteller as they had. Will Ospreay's as good of a wrestler. They did a really good job with, what they had to build a compelling All-In card. And I understand All In Texas is a month earlier than it normally is, but we're 3 weeks out from this show. I talked about it initially when the build started happening. We've got 3 matches on this card, everybody. We've got Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley, who I have no doubt will deliver. They have great chemistry together. That's for the World Championship. But in terms of the build of that has felt completely underwhelming because it feels misguided. There's a lot of missing parts. There's a lot of disconnection. There's the Death Riders, and then there's Hangman, and there's Swerve, and there's Ospreay, and there's just all this other stuff, this disconnected thing where it's just like it feels like a poorly put together, storyline that really a lot of the parts there are not really connecting. It's really kind of a mess in that respect. Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, they did their big angle and they followed it up with a wrestling match and no explanation for why Don Callis is now aligned with Kazuchika Okada, and no real tension within the Don Callis family. No, Kenny Omega, cutting a promo from his hospital bed or something. Nothing to build this. I give them credit. They took a risk and they did an angle, but they're banking on these two delivering a match that they haven't, been in the same ring with each other for 6-7 years, at least in a wrestling capacity. And this is going to be on American soil. It just doesn't the name value alone is going to sell that match. But does that feel like considering it's happened already? And the same thing with Hangman and Hangman and Mox, we've seen that match before. These are retread matches. They're obviously different. And, Okada and Omega mean something. And, Hangman and Moxley, they've had a bunch of great brawls over the years, over the course of AEW, but they differentiating that. And then I've already told you guys how I feel about Mercedes and Tony. They're billing it as the greatest women's match of all time. The build has sucked. We're talking about Mercedes, how she eats her steak. She wins another championship. It's only for one championship. It doesn't. So on name value, you could easily say that 2025's All In is way better. But in terms of build, this build has stunk. And I ask again, are you guys really excited for this show? I'll watch it because these matches definitely have a draw. They have 3 matches on this show that they're banking on. The rest of this show, I met two key parts of last year's All In. Will Ospreay and MJF don't have a direction. Nothing's been booked yet. MJF, we don't know. Maybe he faces Mystico. That's a massive step down for MJF. Will Ospreay is probably going to be in a tag team with Swerve Strickland. They were literally trying to kill each other a couple weeks ago. They're going to face the Young Bucks in a storyline that really doesn't fit. And it seems like Ospreay was supposed to face Moxley in this spot, and that would have, been different because, hey, Moxley, Ospreay, they haven't faced each other at least, one-on-one in an AEW capacity. So that it's just there's that, and then Tony and Mercedes, they're just doing the bare minimum, and and it might even be beneath the bare minimum. This does not feel like the biggest women's wrestling match of all time. And it's the day before an all-women's pay-per-view, an all-women's premium live event in Evolution. At least, listen, if I'm gonna, and I don't know if AEW people are gonna listen to me or they pay attention to this channel, please put some build or put some effort into the next 3 weeks to, get, just because you have 3 matches on the build with big names and big stars doesn't mean that it's all gonna work out. You can't just bank on this and name brands just selling your show. You've got to at least give stories from week to week and actually, not just bank on the matches delivering. They probably will, but that's not going to attract casuals. And on a weekend where you're competing with other people, this is, I think, one of the main reasons why WWE was like, hey, why not put them to the test and see, hey, if some people, we can maybe attract some people on the back end. And then, what AEW did? They countered it and they basically said, well, fuck it. We're just going to go earlier in the day and avoid Saturday night's main event. So Bill Goldberg being against Okada Omega, that's not going to be an issue. This show's going to be over. And I don't doubt that a lot of people are going to probably prefer to watch, All In over NXT Great American Bash. It's not even called NXT Great American Bash. They're just going to call it the Great American Bash, but it's going to be an NXT show. So this doesn't feel like a WrestleMania, and it should. This doesn't feel big. This doesn't feel special. It doesn't feel unique. And when you have the 6 names that I mentioned on your card in those 3 big matches, and they don't feel as big as the show last year, when the name brands weren't as good, but the story was better, that's a problem. So I'm telling you, Tony, everybody back there, Will Washington, whoever the hell works back in creative, please try to put some compelling stories on television for the next 3 weeks. It may be too little too late, but at least try, because it looks like you're not trying. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.